So Tony, what's going on with you, brother? How you feeling?
Stoop, man. I'm glad we back here. Benny dropped a good one. I'm excited about it. Excited to break it down.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I think it is a good album. We were talking earlier before we even got on. I think one thing that I'm hearing with this album, if you go all the way back to Benny's first joints, you know what I'm saying? Black Soprano Family. If you go all the way back then, his music is so much different now. You know what I'm saying? Like everything from um the instrumentation to his lyrics and to his flow. You know what I mean? Everything is different. And the I think the first thing that jumps out for me is just the growth in his music. The growth in his lyrics. He's way more um what's the word that I want to use? Introspective. You know what I'm saying? It's still drug rap, right? Let's not put it there. Let's call it like it is. It still is, but it's much more introspective in the way that he's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of storytelling, and within the storytelling, you can hear him talk about regret. You can hear him talk about guilt. You can hear him talk about his sole purpose, for being in the game was to take care of his family. You know what I mean? And then, kind of, tripping you up on, the mistakes and the successes that he's made along the way. You know what I mean? I think you get a lot of it in this album. You know what I mean? I think you get a lot of it. I think he was, very introspective throughout the album. And I'm not talking on a like conscientious level. That's not where I'm
Mm-hmm.
going with it. You know what I mean? It's just more like um
It's natural growth.
Super Plug, for example. Just listen to the hook on Super Plug. Where he's saying, the reason I'm doing this is to take care of my people, to take care of my family, et cetera, et cetera. You listen to 10 More Commandments, right? And at the end, his last commandment is you got to get out the game, right? You know what I'm saying? You got to stay in it long enough. You want to be where I'm at so that I can tell the story now. You know what I'm saying? So you got to get out the game in order to be able to tell the story. Because if you don't, you probably, you're not gonna make it. You know what I mean? So I think it's much more introspective in the way that he's, you know, spreading his messages, speaking about the drug game. It's not just I sold this, I sold that, I did this weight, that weight, I'm chopping it up this way and that way, I got money and da da da. Of course that's there, but there's an introspective side to it as well. You know what I mean? And I just think it marks a lot of growth from him. As I mean, even if you go back and you listen to those albums, he sounds like a little kid. You know what I mean? To the way that he sounds now. So a lot more introspection in his music.
Yeah, yeah, and that's. I think that's what you want from an artist, especially when you follow them for a long time. You know what I mean? Like you want to see their growth. You want to see them talk about things that are new to their experiences in life to kind of tell you, hey, I used to be in this car, now I'm in this car. Like that's growth. What I really like, I think he makes it a conscious point to say, hey, I'm not in the game no more, and you know, so don't even, you know what I mean. I want to move away from everything that had to do with that. But at the same time, I also love his features because I feel like he's pulling people up with him. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So he's elevated to this level, but he's reaching back and always trying to bring up some of his contemporaries, some of the guys that kind of was in the same boat as him, and that's the great part.
Yeah, and he's like It's gonna be a funny comparison, but I was thinking about this. All you New York Knicks fans out there, you know what I mean? I think y'all understand what I'm trying to say. He's kind of like the RJ Barrett of rap to me right now. You know what I'm saying? Because I was talking about his growth, and it's like I can hear the growth in his music the same way I can see RJ Barrett growing on the court. Like I'm witnessing it happen. You know what I'm saying? And with Benny the Butcher, you can tell like he's right at this point where he can take it over the top. There's just a few more, maybe a few more things that he has to do, you know, with his music, and expanding his music. You know what I'm saying? But he's right there, and it's kind of the same way with RJ Barrett. Like RJ Barrett is right there, ready to go to this next level, take it to another echelon. You know what I mean? And I feel like Benny is in that same boat. When I listen to Burden of Proof, so and here's a funny thing, right? Burden of Proof, it felt like he was trying to take himself to that next level of artist. You know what I mean? The songs were a little bit more glossy than usual, a little more catchy than usual. A lot of the songs on there, but then he comes back with a couple more joints right after that, and brings you back to where he came from. Right, so it's like it's like he dusted off the dirt, but then he went back home and got the dirty boots on and went back outside. You know what I'm saying? To let you know, like, okay, but this is still where I come from. You know what I mean? Which is so I can hear him and see him tone the line as he's on going his way up the ladder, trying to figure out, not trying to figure out, but making sure that he keeps his fan base, but also slowly opens up a new fan base. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's impressive, and I like watching the growth. You know what I'm saying? I really like watching the growth. What do you think about that comparison?
I like it. I like it. Stuff, especially because I understand exactly what you're saying. Um, I think it's a fair point, if especially for the Knicks fans, that they're gonna get it. But no, I agree. I think Griselda as a whole, like they all showing growth. I think Conway's showing a lot of growth too. A lot of introspective stuff. I'm waiting for that's the one thing I'm waiting for with Benny. I think that's what's gonna kind of push him over the top. Just getting a little bit more introspective, and showing some of these I don't want to say emotions, but feelings. You know what I mean? Like, but I agree. He's shown. This is my favorite Tana talk for sure. You know what I mean? And I like it better than the plugs we met. So I think sky's the limit for him, and he's super influenced. I think by Jay Z on this album. If I was gonna make a comparison, I'll probably get killed for it, but that's kind of who he reminds me of on this album. Um, not not like bar for bar or style, but just like what he's talking about, and the growth. And I'm out the game, but I still know all these. You know what I mean? I still know the life, and 10 more commandments, just to reference this record. When I first heard he was doing it, I was like, "Yo, I don't know. I don't know if you could recreate that feeling. You know what I mean? I don't know if you should even try to mess with, what I mean, that lineage of a record. I thought it was a dangerous, a risky move, and I think he pulled it off. I think he pulled it off 100% because of the content more than anything else. Like you said, get out the game being the last one. But everything he touched on in those other 9 commandments, if you will, I think they were spot on. Social media, this one didn't exist when Big was around, so he couldn't touch on it. But stay off social media. You basically telling on yourself. He touched on running off on the plug, which you know what I mean, that'll get you hurt, and, and,
Right.
and mess up future business. Like you getting one lick instead of being able to have a long relationship with somebody that might get you way further. So I mean, I love that record. I think he aced that one for sure. I
Yeah,
just had to
I think so too.
yeah, I just
I,
had
I
to
think so
go
too.
there.
I think so too, man. Because I think what he's proven is that you can, even though it's drug rap, I think he's proven that you can extract the lessons, life lessons, right? You can extract it from that still. You know what I'm saying? Because it's still the same type of lessons, still the same type of feelings. It's just applied to something different. I think he's showing that you can still extract it. You know what I mean? And then you can take it as a listener and apply it to yourself. You know what I mean? In any way that you need to apply it. You know. So I guess let's go ahead. Let's take talk about the track list a little bit and take it from there. We don't have to go break down every single song like we normally do on the full reviews, but we could talk about some of our standouts. We could start with the first track. That's the one thing about the album, though. Um, for me, the first track, obviously, the first track is the first track that we heard on the album. I think it's the best track on the album, right? So I think they purposely put that track, Johnny P, put it on you know, made it the first track so that you get that one out the way because you've heard it already. So that's a good thing, but it's also a drawback for me because it's the best track on the album. And so now I'm going through the entire album like, okay, is anything going to top it? You know what I mean? So I don't want to say, I don't want to say I hear the first track and it's all downhill from there because it's not like that. But when I hear the first track, I want to hear something that tops it. You know what I mean? And I don't think anything tops that song. A couple close joints, but I don't think anything tops that song. What's your thoughts on that song?
All right, I'm not gonna say it's the best track on the album, but it definitely has the best verse on the album. Um, uh, J. Cole went nuts on that record. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think he was talking to some people. We might have to do an episode on that verse, to be honest.
Hmm.
Um,
There's
but
actually a couple of verses on here that I want to do an entire episode, dedicate an entire episode to.
fair enough, fair enough.
Yeah,
So
that
I
might
mean,
be a new lane of content too. But you know,
yeah, yeah. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. But so I love the track. I would have put it at the end. I would have put it as the last track because of everything you named. We already, you know what I mean? It was already released before the album. We heard the song. Um, it's not like we were gonna run to it. You know what I mean? If it was the last track, it would have just been a bonus or reminder. Like, so I think that might have been a mislapse in that sense. But I don't think it's the best track on the album. So but fire track. I'm mad. I thought Benny should have went a little bit harder, but he maybe have had his verse done, sent it out. You know what I mean? I don't know. You should have had maybe came with a second verse behind it, just to kind of, you know what I mean? Because Cole went nuts. Cole went
yeah,
nuts, and,
yeah.
and it was speculation. We'll get into that when we do the breakdown. But there was speculation like that he was taking shots at him on the record, which I don't think he did. But when we do the breakdown, we could get into that when we
Okay.
get the.
I mean, we can get into it now. That he was taking shots at him.
It
That
was out.
Cole was taking shots at Benny.
It was out there. It was out there. I don't, again, I don't agree with it, but it definitely was. And I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, I might have heard somebody ask him about it.
Hmm. Okay.
If I'm not mistaken,
Okay, the Public Enemy said he did. I guess I need to go back and review his verse. You know what I mean, to see
Well,
where people would assume that he was taking shots at Benny.
I mean, basically, he was saying, and again, I didn't agree with it, but he was saying like you always got to use gun lines in your bars or something to that extent,
Right.
and or drugs and guns, like that's
Right,
what
right. I mean, okay, I
rap
heard
about.
that. I
So,
heard that,
and,
but
and again, I don't agree with it. I don't think Cole. I mean, I don't think Cole did it. But then again, all right, I'm sorry. We're gonna do a little
but
bit.
look, but that's
He
gonna go,
also
but that goes back to. I mean, I guess you can infer that it goes back to if you go all the way back to when Nas was on Breathe with Jay-Z, whatever the full name of the song is, and he said, my worst enemies want to be my best friends. Like that's what's in. You know what I'm saying? You could say that that was a shot at Jay.
absolutely, absolutely. But and then he also said on, you know what I mean, like basically saying you asked me for a feature, you it's like asking for the Reaper or something to that effect. You know what I mean? Like so it 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 fit
Okay,
it fit the narrative,
get the
but
narrative.
basically, if anything, Cole was saying like anybody. He said if Jesus asked me for a feature, I'm gonna end up going to hell because you
Right.
know what I mean.
I mean, yeah, right,
So,
right.
so
But
so he's talking.
but
It wasn't specific. If anything, it wasn't specific to Benny. You know what I
but
mean? He
could
said anybody.
and could it also be that he's calling Benny authentic, right? Because why would I be saying this stuff on his track if I don't think he's authentic? You know what I'm saying? So if I think he's lying, I might not be saying it on his track because I'm not trying to start that type of thing going on, that type of beef going on. You know what I'm saying? I'm not afraid to say it on his track because I know Benny is authentic with it.
I
You
agree.
know?
I didn't even think it. I didn't think it was a shot at Benny. I when I listened to that verse, I'm like Cole
Hmm.
is telling the world. Like, and you know what I mean? Like I thought he was talking to the world. It just happened to be on Benny's song. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah,
the way I looked at it. But it was out there. You know what I mean? They was trying to stir things up, and I'm like, yeah, he
yeah.
talking to, you know who he talking to.
Right, right. But I do agree that Benny should have did another verse. You know what I'm saying? Like you left it out there. I mean, that was a hard verse. I think he should have did another verse. You know what I mean, I agree with you there. Even if it was a short one, just to finish it up so that everybody hears him last. You know what I mean, and be able to say, and he could have wrote that verse after Cole sent in his joint. You know what I mean? After Cole sent in his joint, he could have wrote that verse and put it on there just to finish it off. But it- nonetheless, as a super dope track for me, that's my favorite track. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I got a lot of favorites on it, but that's my favorite track right there. You know, I don't know where you want to go next. If you want to go to, if you want to go track by track, or if you want to,
Let's go through them quick.
okay,
I like the next track. I'm a big Stove God Cooks fan, so and this might have been the first time that I actually heard them together.
yeah,
I usually heard them with West Side, so that was a treat for me,
hmm,
and it got me ready to, you know what I mean, ready to go after Peace Johnny Peace
yeah.
Caddy, because
I wasn't crazy about the hook. I
it took
wasn't crazy about the hook.
it's growing on me because that's I didn't like it at first either.
Yeah, I mean, I like the bag back. I like, what I'm saying. I feel like I haven't heard that joint in a minute. Bag back. Just
Mhm.
the phrase. I feel like I haven't heard it in a minute. Bag back, but I wasn't crazy about the hook on it. You
You
know,
know, I know you got some thoughts on Super Plug, so
yeah, yeah.
you
Super
go ahead and
plug.
take it away.
I like super plug, man, because I just like. I feel like I feel like that's, you know, that's a track that's really explaining who he is, you know what I'm saying, where he comes from, things that he did, and where he's going. You know what I'm saying? And why he did what he, why he was out there in the game doing what he was doing. You know what I mean? Like the entire track, I think is very introspective. Um, when I listen to tracks like that from him, it's like he's writing his autobiography, to give to the world. You know what I mean? And you could literally, with some of the songs, at least more recently, I'm not gonna say back, you know, way back in 2014, 15. Not gonna say back then, you know what I mean, because I think he was just a different rapper. But over the last, you know, 6, 7 albums, I feel like you can take the stories that he's telling, whether or not they're all true. You know what I mean? They may not all just straight up be true. That would be crazy, in my opinion. But they're depictions of what his life was like, and I feel like you can take it and write, make short movies to expand them out to longer movies. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that he does it like Nas does it, but he's good. He's really good at really explaining, things that he felt. Uh, and I feel like he did it throughout that track. You know what I'm saying? Like just like telling little stories on, even when he got out, he was still home putting stuff in his father's couch. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? And almost hearing like, damn, I'm still stuck in this mindset. I'm still stuck in the game. I just did a bit and I'm still here. You know what I mean? And like, kind of expressing the maybe the regret and the guilt behind that. So that's why I really do like that song. It's not my favorite, but it's probably my second or third. You know what I mean? But that's the reason why I really like that song. I like the way he breaks it down.
Yeah, I agree. It's like top five for me for sure. And I probably got to listen to it again because it's in between. Like I said, I'm a huge Soul for God Cooks fan, and then I was really looking forward to the next track. So it's in between those two. So I don't know how I just got to reevaluate it, but it's definitely up there. I don't know if it's number one for me, number two, but it's definitely in the top five.
Hmm.
Um, weekends in Paris featuring Boldy James.
Bodie James. Yeah.
So my cousin had told me about Boldy James years and years ago, and then called me out the blue like, "Oh, Nas is about to sign him. Or he about to sign with
Mass appeal.
Mass Appeal." And I finally listened to him, when he signed, and nothing really stood out to me other than his voice, but I wasn't really into him. I think he killed this record for sure, and I like the feature. I think they it was a nice. I like all the features on this album, like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think he had a lot of dope features on it. Well, I mean, not a lot, but the features were dope on the album.
and it
Definitely.
was it wasn't the typical, like, it wasn't like he was reaching for people, like using his status and reaching for people. He was picking. I think these are handpicked. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
it feels that way.
Yeah,
I,
and which is good because if you go back in his through all of his albums, some albums is like feature like super feature heavy. You know what I mean? And they're not always, to me, haven't always been great. Just people he's trying to put on and push up the ladder or pull up the ladder with him, and that's cool and everything. But I think these are definitely more calculated features that he threw on the album. And then we get to 10 More Commandments. This is definitely one of the highlights of the album to me. You know what I mean? And I'll say this. I know you say you liken this album to kind of like, him getting a lot of influence from Jay-Z. I could have heard Benny, doing work with Puffy back in the day, like this Benny. doing work with Puffy back in the day when when Puff dropped his first album and he had a bunch of dope features on there. I could have heard Benny doing work with Bad Boy back in the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think and I feel like he could cross into that lane. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not talking about the shiny
shiny
suit
suit.
lane. I'm not talking about that, but like the locks type of lane. You know what I'm saying? And like I could hear him on Money, Power, Respect.
That's a good point.
And yeah, I feel like he could have he could have fit seamlessly in that age of music for Bad Boy. But I thought they were a good pairing on this track. First, Puffy wasn't too crazy. Of course, Puffy's gonna be on it. He wasn't too crazy on it. And it's fitting that he had Puffy on there, right? Since he kind of is doing a repeat of a Biggie joint.
He talked about that too. I guess shout out to D Public Enemy. I think it was the Breakfast Club interview. Like he's saying to go watch. I think it was on there where he talked about Diddy and him sending the record to Diddy and just trying to get a his input or get the okay
Get the
and
okay to do it. Yeah,
and then Diddy jumped on it and you know what I mean, which that's the official stamp right there.
right.
This is probably my third favorite record on the album. And again, it's because I wasn't sure if he could pull it off,
Hmm.
like coming in behind Big and kind of recreating a record or expanding a record that he did. Um, and I wasn't even super thrilled with the beat, to be honest.
Me either.
So especially what I mean, because I'm off jump, I'm gonna compare it to the original beat. You know what I mean? Which what I mean, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be tough to beat that. But I think because the content was so great, it I don't even hear the beat. It's similar to with early Nas or a critique of Nas. Like people say he always picked bad beats. I don't think it was always, but I think a lot of times Nas just outshined the beat. Like
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Because the content, at least for me, the content was so strong. It didn't even matter what the beat was most of the time. You know what I mean? And this is what I kind of got with this record. I think he outshined the beat because the content was so great.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't think the beat was. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was you know the best, but I thought it was okay. I feel like the commandments. I mean, the way he broke down the commandments was dope. You know what I'm saying? It was dope. Obviously, it's not gonna have the same impact as the original because it was already done and it was done by Biggie. You know what I'm saying? But it was a dope reboot. And then to have Biggie on there, I mean to have Puff on there, you know what I mean, to give it that stamp of approval. And then I talked about it earlier. You know what I'm saying? I just love the way he finished it up when, again, it shows, the interest, him, just being introspective and kind of adding a little bit of his thoughts and opinions into the game and where he say, hey, get out the game.
Hey Sim, I'll tell you this though. Here's why it could be as big as the Biggie record because of it's 2022.
Hmm.
So it references things that like the
Right,
social media thing. You know
right,
what I mean? Like so this could be a direct blueprint for somebody that's living that life today, right now. You know what I mean? Where depending on how old they are, they may not even be familiar with Biggie.
right,
They may
right,
not even have heard the
right,
original. So
right. I
now
mean,
they
because
could go back and listen to the original as well. And
that's
it's
that's
like,
true.
oh, now I got a whole manual. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's true because Biggie wasn't, there was no social media back then. You know what I mean? Like you were saying earlier, there was no social media back then. I think one of the differences with Biggie's is like back then when Biggie dropped that. I mean, that joint was I mean, it was banging in the club. You know what I mean? It's a different time, day and age. So the music that's being played in the club, you're like, that's not gonna be in the club, right? So it took Biggie's like to a whole nother level. The fact that it could be banged in the club the way it was. You know what I mean? And I mean, and the beat was like that. You know what I mean? You could just bang the beat in the club. I mean, you still hear the beat today,
Well,
even
I,
basketball games, you know.
I was gonna say it's because of the beat
Yeah.
that it banged in the club. Like it could just throw the instrumental on, and it was a short enough record that
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Like the beat probably played way longer than the record did
Right.
in the
Right.
club.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but
But
I
I mean,
agree.
but it was a dope joint though. You know, yeah, like real dope. And then you got Tyson versus Ali.
I think that's my
Right.
favorite record on
Okay.
the album.
Okay.
I love that Benny's talk. I love the way they set it up. Like the concept of the record. You know, I
Hmm.
don't know who's Tyson, who's Ali, but you know what I mean. I love the way they referenced them, and then said how everybody always wondered who would win, Tyson
Right.
or Ali. But then Benny goes into talking about how you know why y'all always trying to pit me against my brother. You know what I mean? Like when he's
Hmm.
shining, you know what I mean. I'm shining. When I'm shining, he shine. You know what I mean? Like I love the record. My
Yeah.
my my only thing is I thought they should have made the hook more of
Yeah. Yeah.
a chorus where
Right.
like
Not
it was
just
a
Tyson
verse.
versus Ali, Tyson
Yeah.
versus right. It should have been something. And yeah, I like the way Conway starts in, like talking to Benny. You know what I'm saying? Like keep doing what you're doing. I mean, he didn't say keep doing what you're doing, but
Yeah.
he said, um, he comes in, talking to him, having a conversation with him, and it's fitting, right? Because I mean, it's rap, and so people are always gonna, who's better? You know what I'm saying? Who's the best MC in the group, et cetera, et cetera. Same thing happened with Wu Tang. You know what I mean? Um, same thing happened with, I guess, yeah, same thing happened with Tyson. They would go back and say, well, if Tyson was in his prime and Ali was in his prime, who would win? You know what I mean? Here both rappers are in their prime, though. I think that's the only difference. I mean, the reference is dope. Tyson versus Ali, and if you're doing that, you're not gonna say, Tyson versus Lennox Lewis. You know what I mean? I mean, like they don't have the same cachet. So you got to do Tyson versus Ali, right? Because that's gonna have and it's gonna help you get the picture, of what they're talking about. But I think that was a dope concept. And as a matter of fact, well, now actually, it's something different than I had thought about before. You know what I mean? They did something differently. I remember I used to have this idea all the time that Jay Z and Nas would do a track together, right? So it's a song that they're doing together, but they're actually taking shots at each other, like really purposely taking shots at each other on the track. You know what I mean? But this is something totally different, with the way that they did it. But just just the fact that they're bringing out light to everybody keeps saying this, but we here supporting each other. Y'all not going to divide us, and it's good because obviously Conway is no longer signed to Griselda. You know what I'm saying? So it's just confirmation that that's business stuff. We crew with Griselda anyway. Griselda's not just a signature on a paper. It's more than that. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was a dope track. I do like the track, and I do wish that the hook was a little bit different, but it was a dope track.
Yeah, they should have
It,
did the Hagler versus Hearns like Nas and AZ did with you know what I mean
oh
like
man, now that
a
would have
whole
been
hook. You know what I mean like a
yeah,
whole
yeah,
verse
right,
as a
right,
hook.
right. I mean, shoot, that would have been dope if they called it Hagler versus Hearns and used that same hook.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? And kind of brought it back, used that hook, and then had their own
spin on it.
spin on it, because that would have been dope. Because when you just paid homage to Biggie, and then you come right after that and you pay homage to Nas and AZ, you know what I mean? Like that would have been dope.
And,
That'd have been pretty dope.
and you hear the '97 Hove all over all over the album. So
Right.
you pay mad how much to hold.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that would have been pretty dope. Now, here's where I'm not gonna say the album gets bad. It doesn't get bad. I think it's a good album all the way through. But like up to track 6, I feel like, there was a little bit more creativity in the album. You know what I'm saying? Obviously with 10 More Commandments, Tyson versus Ali. I like what he's talking about on Super Plug. I mean, Weekends in the, I mean, I feel like took more chances here, the first half of the album. As we get into the second half of the album, while there's still, there's still introspection, I feel like it gets kind of the same thing over and over. You know what I mean? And that's the one thing, with drug rap that gets me. It makes it hard for me to listen to an entire album because I start hearing the same repetitive themes and they just keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. You know what I mean? And then it makes me say, all right, let me switch over to something else. And that's where I feel like the second half of the album starts to kind of get repetitive in the themes. You know?
Let me ask you this, son.
Hmm.
Because if you think about it, I mean, the next song has 38 Special, and
Right.
then down the line he has West Side, but that's it. There's no more features. So if you look at the first couple, you got one. He only got one song that didn't have a feature at that point. So I wonder if that is influencing how you feel, or my question would be if the sequence where if he mixed those first six in between the other six, would that have maybe changed your
It might have. It might have. You know what I mean? Because then, like, I listened to maybe two songs that's kind of the same, and then something, boom, switches it up. Two songs, and then something switches it up. It might have.
um
I have. You know, I mean, I like the songs,
mm-hmm.
right? I like the songs. Those Revenge. I like all of them. I just feel like the themes become, a little bit repetitive.
And you kind of make a fair point in the sense that when I listen to the album, I'm always driving when I listen to it, but it kind of it kind of just goes right through when on those last couple of songs, like until so the Uncle Bun, the Dory's Revenge, and Billy Joe, like it's kind of like one song almost until I get to West Side Gun, because that's
Right.
one of I like that song a lot, the West Side song, and and then yeah, then you got the last two. So I kind of get what you're saying, because I don't skip them, but it's almost like I don't even realize the song switched over
Right.
when when
Exactly.
when I'm going from Uncle Bun to West Side. Those three songs in between, it almost like it runs as one. You know what I mean? Like I don't even
Right.
realize, oh, this is a new song until it's almost over, I guess. So I I, I
Yeah.
guess that's kind of me understanding what you're saying.
I mean, and it kind of is because it's all of the same themes, going over and over. All of them introspective, and there's little things here and there that talk about when he got shot. I mean, just different things, right? But and so it shows some introspective, but it kind of just goes into the same things over and over again, and I get that same effect when I'm listening to it. Listening to it, it just kind of runs through. You know what I mean? But overall, you know what I mean? And I know, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't a full breakdown like, we've done in the past. Um, and if y'all want us to do a full breakdown, we'll do a full breakdown on it, but this is just I don't want to say initial reaction because the album's been out for a little while, but you know what I mean. Just just our thoughts on it. You know what I mean. I mean, I think it's a solid album. I don't know what what would I give it. Um, I mean, anything in the second half of the album that you really want to, any songs you really want to talk about standout joints.
To be honest, the last two, it's I know I heard them, but it's always it's just weird when I hear them because I can't get through the whole album on the way to work or on my way home. You know what I mean? So I didn't get to like kind of really break them down and enjoy them. But I do really like the West Side Gun song, record, and I like the Uncle Bun with 38 Special.
Hmm.
I think he's another one with a distinct voice, that kind of stands out. Um, and just to throw something out there, I would love to hear, and they may have done a record already, but 38 Special and Freddie Gibbs on the record together. I,
Yeah.
I, I think
Um,
I think they would
and
fit
and
very
and
well
and, and,
together.
ju- and just to let y'all know, we're gonna have a segment, a video. We're gonna do an entire video on one of 38 Special's one of his lyrics. He says, what he say? I'm gonna break down his I'm gonna break down his white brick and make a family of white bitches. Something like that. Something somewhere around in there. We're gonna do an entire. We'll let y'all figure out and guess what that's going to be about. We're gonna do an entire show on that though, on that lyric. You know what I mean? Maybe sometime next week. That's gonna be a good discussion right there. So y'all be ready for that one. You know what I mean? But let me ask you this: do you feel like any of the features? Obviously, we talked about Cole. Do you feel like any of the other features outshined them?
Not particularly. No, I would have to sit there and look for it. You know what I mean? Like Cole, I didn't have to, I didn't have to think about it. It's just like,
Right.
yo, he's going nuts. So, like, so just off listening, nobody stood out more than him on the record. I think, other than Cole.
Okay.
So,
All right.
but if I go in with my ears trying to see who got the best verse, I might have to do that to change that opinion. But just off the natural listen, no,
Yeah. All right.
no.
All right. All right. I mean, anyways, a dope album. What would you give it? What do you give it out of 10?
I give it a solid 8, honestly. Mm, Um, the lowest would be 7.5, but I think a solid 8 because I actually like it better than his last project. So
Okay. All right. I mean, I give it. I'm there about. I'm between 7.5 and 8. I mean, like I said, the last half, becomes while the songs are dope, kind of become, the same for me. Going through the last half of the album, but still a dope album. Still a dope album. I mean, definitely go out there and pick it up if you haven't, or I guess just stream it. You don't have to pick it up, stream it. You know what I mean? Go
you
out
can
there and
pick
stream that joint.
you can pick something up though because they got merch.
Word,
They
word,
got merch.
no doubt. But ladies and gentlemen, yeah, that's it right there. I don't know if we're gonna do a full album breakdown on this. You know what I mean? We'll save those full ones for some real special albums that come out, I guess. You know what I'm saying? But I think me and Tony is about the same. If we break it in half, we're about a 7.8 for the album or something like that. It's probably where we are. So go out there and check it out. Tana Talk 4, Griselda, Benny the Butcher, Griselda. You know what I mean? You know what to expect. The only one more question. Only one more question. Ralph Unreal said review the KRS's new album. I haven't listened to it yet, so but I think that's a good one.
All right.
Um, do you think Griselda puts out too much music?
Sorry about that.
because they put out a lot of music, bro. You don't and you don't know what's out, what are official albums or what are, you know what I'm
I
saying? Like they put out a lot.
I think Griselda. I think they're smart and they've adapted to the times. So
Hmm.
I think what they're doing is kind of flooding the market. Their
That's what they
fan
do, right?
their fans are gonna their fans are gonna listen to all of it. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna listen to all of it. Anytime they release something, I'm listening to it. You know what I mean? Um, what I'm starting to do now is really pick my favorites out and then add them to a playlist.
Right,
So now, you know what I mean? I got all the albums playing, but minus the one or two track that I'm pulling out and just have it playing like that. And then I think with them putting all this music out, besides their core audience, or their core fan base, I think something will tap in here, something will tap in there. You know what I mean? So I think that they're up on the times, and that's why they do it. Like 10 years ago, no, yeah, they be putting too much out and they be wasting, wasting potential uh hits or potential they be making a mistake. But I think today they're doing the right thing, especially since they haven't crossed over into superstardom or pop or radio world. You know
hmm,
what I mean? So the core audiences, like I said, they're always gonna listen. We're always gonna listen, and then they can get the opportunity for something to actually seep outside their audience and maybe get a buzz that way.
right, right. I feel like it makes it hard for them to like drop that bona fide classic because it's so much out. You know what I mean? When you look back in the days, some of those albums became bona fide classic because you had to listen to it for a while before another album dropped. You know what I'm saying? Like now it's just like bang, 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 bang. Like for them, I'm saying bang, 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 bang. And so by the time you like really getting into this, they got another joint out. And you're like, let me switch over and see what this is about.
I
Um,
think I think
yeah,
only I think only certain artists are awarded that though. That way they could drop every 3 years, every 4 years. I don't think
yeah,
you know what I mean. I don't know about today with the streaming and how it works, but back in the day, even then, you couldn't risk not coming out every year because you might lose your whole audience.
right.
If you know what I mean, but only certain people was allowed to take a 3 year off, 4 year off, and still have. And I think the same is still kind of true today. I think and this is not me taking a shot at them or saying like they don't believe in themselves, but they may feel like this it might end at any time. So you know what I mean, like it might, or they may be looking to get in and get out and get into other ventures. So yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
just
I mean,
boom, boom, boom.
part of it is the streams. You know what I'm saying? The more stuff you put out, the more streams you get, and it's creating that residual income because you're not getting the traditional record sales. You know what I mean? So the
Hmm.
more music you put out, you keep flooding it out, you keep getting streams and streams and streams. And now you got this residual income coming in off of your music. So, I mean, that's part of it. That's part of the reason why songs have gotten shorter too, because it makes people rewind it and play it again, play it again.
Say it
You know what I
again.
mean?
And I was just gonna say, it's one thing about Griselda. Um, uh, we gonna replay that junk. You know what I mean? Like it's not like we getting tired of. You know what I mean? I still play Tana Talk, the original one, or three, or you know what I mean? Like
Three. Yeah.
I play all them drinks. So it's not
Yeah.
like they getting more streams with more records because I
Right.
go back to the old drinks. I mix them in the playlist. So I think they doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Well, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, man, drop it in the comments. Let us know some more things to review. And we do it. But we appreciate y'all. It's 11:49. We about to get up out of here. I don't know what happened to Savvy, but anyway, we're out, ladies and gentlemen. Be peaceful, and we talk to you next time.